Hi class, this video is going over quiz 4. The chapters for this quiz were chapter 11, Preventing Violence, chapter 12, which was Preparing for Crisis Response, and chapter 25, which was Violent Thoughts and Behaviors. So this week we were really focusing on those violent students who have the potential to be violent, and then also how in schools we can prepare for a crisis response. So far this course has been all about how do we prepare in order to prevent, how do we do all of these prevention efforts. And so now we're moving into the section of the course in the second half where we are going to talk about how we react and respond to crisis events in schools. Overall, this quiz, I was very happy with it. 11 people in the class took the quiz, and of those 11, 5 scored a 10 out of 10. The class average was a 7.5, and the range was a 1.5 to 10. Question 1 was how many steps are in the decision tree for student threat assessment, and your options were 3, 10, 5, and 7. The answer to that question can be found in chapter 25 on page 493 and figure 25.1. There are 7 steps. The first step is to evaluate the threat. The second is to decide whether the threat is clearly transient or if it's substantiated. And so talk about the student's age, credibility, things like that to see if the threat is actually viable. Step 3 is to respond to a transient threat, and step 4 is to decide whether the substantive threat is serious or very serious. If the threat is serious, then you move to step 5, which is respond to a serious threat. If it is very serious, you do step 6, which is conduct a safety evaluation, and then from there you implement a safety plan for step 7. And so those are the decision tree. The answers to different steps can lead you to different paths. It looks like the majority of the class answered that correctly. 72% answered 7. Question 2 was what the MFAT model helps establish comprehensive safe learning environments and crisis responses. The model incorporates the following elements: multiple blank, multiple blank, multiple blank, and multiple blank of intervention. Think about it. It's the MFAT model. So the M stands for multiple in each of the 4 areas. So your first letter is going to be each of those PHAT. We're looking for multiple phases, multiple hazards, multiple agencies, and multiple tiers. And that is on page 257 in chapter 12. There's a heading actually titled the MFAT model, and it goes on to talk about it through page 258. I would definitely review that. It's important. Question 3, what are the 4 phases of crisis management? That is also in chapter 12. Very nicely laid out in table 12.2 on page 248. You had options here. The correct answer was prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Question 4. All of the following are effective strategies to prevent school crisis except. So which one is not effective? This is going to be in chapter 11. And so chapter 11 talks about many different programs that have research has said that they are effective strategies. Of those 2nd steps, the RIP program and the PATHS program are effective strategies. SSIG, I made up. It's not even in our text. So yeah, that would be the correct answer, SSIG. Okay, questions 5, 6, and 7 were about the articles that I had you read. I I really hope that you read the articles for week 6 because I think they're extremely interesting. They were about rampage shooters, and it was about a typology. From that one, I really want you to look at, what a rampage shooter is and how not all school shootings are necessarily qualified as a rampage shooting. And then let's see, we also had, I lost the week. Okay, an article all about the inherent limits of predicting school violence. And this is extremely important. We'll go back to the quiz questions in a second, but teachers, administrators, we want to be able to know who is going to be a school shooter or what is going to happen. And we want to be able to kind of pigeonhole those students so that we can feel safe. However, we can't do that. This article goes through the limits of predicting school violence, and that if we were to create a typology of students who are school shooters, we would have so many false positives. School shootings specifically are a very small incident event, so they do not happen very often. However, students that fit the profile occur in every school. And so we would be stepping on those students' rights if we were to treat them as if they may be a school shooter, when, just statistics tell us that that would never happen. And then finally, the last article was just research in school shootings. And let's see. Hang on. Okay, I paused it because I had to look at a few things, but back to what I was talking about. The articles, I hope you found them to be very interesting because I really enjoyed reading them. The quiz questions that were associated with the articles, question 5, it was a short answer question. Is it possible to identify school shooters before they act? Explain your answer in 1 to 2 complete sentences. Use information from this week's readings. If you did not answer in 1 to 2 sentences, I did not give you points. It's called following directions. Those are important. And then the correct answer is no. It's not possible to identify school shooters before they act. However, if you answered in a variation of it isn't possible to necessarily determine who is going to be a school shooter, but there are warning signs, and used the video to back that up, but also tied in the article that says, there are a lot of false positives and we can't pigeonhole students who fit a certain criteria into a school shooter mold, because we are stepping on their rights if we do that. Question 6, the 10 school shooters examined in one of the supplemental readings, and that specific reading was the Rampage School Shooters article. I really hope you found that interesting. I thought it was very cool. Cool is a weird word, but to read about the warning factors and the lives of these individuals who became school shooters. But anyway, they fell into 3 categories, and that article divided the 10 school shooters into traumatized individuals, psychotic, and psychopathic. And the prognosis and the ability to be a leader or a follower, and how those tied into each of those categories was very interesting. And finally, question 7, this ties back to the chapter, and it's in the chapter 25, but dating violence, stalking, and carrying a weapon to school, or carrying a weapon, are examples of school violence. And that is true. Those are all considered school violence. So, if there are any questions about any of the questions on this quiz or anything before the midterm, just let me know. I'm always available by email or during my office hours or by appointment. Thanks.